Hello everybody, good evening and welcome to the United Stand. I'm Mark Goldbridge and this is your latest Manchester United news. As Ruben Amorim sends a cry to help. Cry for help probably from his players, but probably more from the owners of the football club, the Glazers and Ineos, as he describes what is probably the worst Man United side ever. In the words of Ruben Amorim, this is what he had to say. In the last 10 games in the Premier League, we've won 2. Imagine what that is for a fan of Manchester United. Imagine what that is for me. We're getting a new coach who is losing more than the last coach. I've got full knowledge of that. We are the worst team maybe in the history of Manchester United. I know you want headlines, but I'm saying that because we have to acknowledge that and to change that. Here you go, your headlines. So the manager of Manchester United, who I think speaks incredibly honestly and has, earned a lot of respect in this fan base by doing that, saying that this is probably the worst Man United side in history of Manchester United. But what do those words mean? Why would a manager say that? It's not normal. I think if you're Pep Guardiola, you can do it because you've got something to fall back on. If you're Sir Alex Ferguson, you've got something to fall back on. But for a new manager to come into Manchester United and say that we are the worst Man United side ever after 10 games is incredibly brave, incredibly honest, and he's done for a reason. And I think the reason is staring us all in the face. That's not me, by the way. It's because he wants a big fat payoff. It's because he has basically absolutely reached the point, which many of us knew was the reality, that this job is impossible. And that if he doesn't acknowledge it, then he is damaging his reputation. For example, I think Ole, Ten Hag, and maybe Mourinho at times were very much about, we're Manchester United, we're not where we should be. We've just got to work hard. Good times will come. I think having a manager saying good times aren't going to come, this is a terrible team in a terrible position, it, for the first time ever, gives us the clarity and honesty of where we are. And it is a cry for help. It is a message to whoever wants to listen that I think you know what I think it is. And look, I want it to be a therapy session, so give us your thoughts. Exactly. I wasn't going to do we've just done a match day. I don't normally do an 8 o'clock show. There's a little bit about Rashford I need to bring in, but we might do that in the morning. If you remind me, I will talk about it. It's a bit from Dortmund that Sam on the United Stand has told us. But I think that when it comes to why Amorim has done this, because it is a headline to say this is the worst Man United side ever. But I think the reason that he's done it is because he is basically saying to Ineos, Glazers, whoever you think run the football club, this situation ain't going to get better just because you brought me in. And I'm telling the world. There's no, give us a few more weeks. There's no, we don't need transfers. There's no, we're good enough to get into the top 6. We're not good enough to get in the top 6. We're not good enough to get in the top half of the table. We are a really bad side and we need to acknowledge it. And you can give me this squad and expect me to coach our way out of it, but it ain't going to happen. And I think it's pointing the finger at the place where it needs to be pointed, where all of you know where it needs to be pointed, but the media probably needs to know as well. What he's basically saying is, this isn't going to get any better. He spoke about the game today, actually, and said, look, we saw Brighton were better. They were consistently better at everything else. They were consistently better at passing, tackling, energy. They were the better team. That's why we lost at Old Trafford. So I think this is a major statement from Amorim, and I think he's made quite a few statements, but I think this is a major statement to say, we're rubbish. That's basically what that's... I mean, God, we've witnessed some terrible Man United sides. The Ole Rangnick one, I think, is the worst ever Premier League side by points. But we have got to start thinking about that. I think Rangnick and Ole season, we got 58 points, 57 points. We're not going to do that. We're not going to do that. So he's right. We're going to do... Well, our worst ever side got relegated. I mean, is that what we're talking about? So I'm with Dries. I completely agree with him doing this. There are people out there. In fact, I'm not going to name them. They don't deserve the credit. There was somebody in the media tonight saying that no Man United manager should be saying that. It's weak. It exposes a weakness, and no Man United manager should be doing that. I suspect there might be one or two ex-players thinking that. Be interesting to see if they've got the balls to come out and counter it. Do I agree with it? Do you agree with it? Let me know. I do agree with it. I do agree with it, and I'll tell you for why. I agree with it because we've been hiding from the truth for so long. I've heard so many of you great people over the years say, papering over the cracks, sweeping it under the carpet, the cycle goes round again, new manager. We needed this. I said this when he came in after the Ipswich result and everyone thought we were going to win and we didn't. I said, you know what? We probably need the shit to hit the fan as much as it can in the next few months, because we absolutely cannot have another false dawn papering the cracks. Short-term gain, long-term pain. We need short-term pain, long-term gain. And I'm absolutely not going to argue with anybody about this. I know the way out. I know the way out. And are they going to take us out? Are they going to do it or not? And there's only two people who can do this, Joel Glazer and Sir Jim Ratcliffe. And they're either going to clear out the club and bring in better players, or they're going to sink the club. And that's it. Football's so simple. Arsenal need a striker and they'd win the league. Simple as that. You know, you give Fulham Man City's budget, they'll win the league. It's simple as that. Football's very, very simple. Man United need to clear out the shit and bring better players in. End of story. We've got the right manager, I'm convinced. We've not always had that, by the way. I think a lot of people would have said, I don't know whether Ten Hag's the guy. I don't think Ollie's the guy. I think we've got the right manager. I just think we haven't got the right owners and the right players. And if we're going to change that, there's only two people who can do it, and that's Joel and Sir Jim. Let me get some of your comments in as well. So I'm all for it. I think it was the right thing to do from Amorim. It's a kick in the teeth. What message does it send to the owners? You're incompetent if you don't do anything. There's two messages Amorim sent there, in my opinion. By saying we're the worst Man United team in history, he's sending two messages. One to the owners, saying you're the only people who can solve it, over to you. And two to the players, saying you're an embarrassment. And those two messages are, for me, are correct. Ineos and the Glazers are the only people who can change the squad profile, and the players need to kick up the arse. And I think that going that way, because it's not our fault, it's not the fans' fault, it's definitely not the fans' fault, and I don't think it's Amorim's fault either. Ray Carl's given us a super chat. Sorry, Ray, you did one right before the video even started. I should have read this. Thank you very much for your super chat. Ray says, the problem we are facing now is that we've been having our worst sides for years. Now other teams are now bringing their best sides while we're still flogging a dead team to the party. When are they going to fix the squad? Well, it's interesting, Ray, because I think that, you know, when these things happen, certain people need to stand up and be countered. And I haven't read this. I was told that he'd done some quotes and I got sent them. So let me just scan down this WhatsApp. Okay, I've not read these before. These are from Bruno. Bruno, after the game, as captain, quite rightly, shouldn't be criticised for coming out and speaking. But this is what he had to say. Very disappointing day, very disappointing afternoon. It's not the performance that we wanted. For me, it doesn't matter if it's home or away. A defeat is always bad. We've had too many already this season. I don't think it is as comfortable for them, but we lacked braveness and a bit belief on turning the result our side. We did it against Southampton with 8 or 10 minutes to go. We should have done it today at least, believe a little bit more and have a bit more braveness and not tire ourselves from the responsibility. You know what I would say, Bruno? There has to be a comeback here. You know, you're talking about the comeback against Southampton and you're saying we should have come back against Brighton. Why are we talking about comebacks? Maybe start the fucking game properly. Like, why do we need to come back at Old Trafford? The first 10 minutes were abysmal. Brighton scored and had the ball and we did nothing. We had one shot on target in the whole bloody game. Don't be talking about comebacks. We're playing Brighton and Southampton at home. It's not Man City and Arsenal. It's not good enough. He said, if this is how it's going to be from now on, it can't be. I understand the perspective from outside, but we cannot be comfortable in thinking that it's okay because it's not. I'm not here to lose games and be in the position we are in at the moment, but I know that no one in the dressing room is, and someone is. They can't be here. And he said, it doesn't matter to me, it's another loss to us. It doesn't matter how many times they've won against us. I remember in the past where they haven't won a game here, that's not going to change anything. The main thing is that going to change for us is when we didn't get the 3 points. Congratulations to them. They did a good game and they deservedly won the game. You know what I take from that? I don't take any angerness. I don't take any anger or bitterness to Bruno. I'll just say this because it's the most cutting thing you can say. You wouldn't start for Brighton. Bye. Because that's the issue. This whole Manchester United myth needs to stop. We are a massive football club. We have a massive fan base. We are a world-renowned football club. Any country in the world will know who Man United are. They won't know who Brighton are. They won't know who Fulham are, but they'll know who Man United are. That's reputation. Actual ability, forget it. Forget it. And I think some of our players live off reputation or their wage or their transfer fee. We aren't good enough. I said this before the Brighton game. I said it on Friday morning. The penny has dropped. We are where we are in the league because that's where we deserve to be in the league. Look at the league table. Are we better than Bournemouth? No. Are we better than Newcastle? No. Are we better than Fulham? No. Are we better than Brighton? No. Are we better than Forest? No. Are we better than Brentford? No. That's without mentioning Chelsea, Liverpool, Man City, Arsenal. They're all better than us. And they're not better than us because they've got a better coach. And they're not better than us because they've got a bigger fan base. They are better than us because they've got better owners and better players. And that's it. That's it. And you know what? I think some of our players think because they play for Portugal or England or whoever else, they think they're better. You are not better. Now, there'll be 2 reasons for that. You're either not better as a player or they play better football in a better system with better players around them. Now, I don't care. I don't care what you think. I don't care what the players think. Is Bruno good enough or is Bruno just not surrounded by good enough players? There's a debate to be had. It doesn't matter because, as I said in the match reaction, this is not one issue. Taking Bruno out the team, replacing him with someone else won't solve the problem. This is a squad issue. This is something that will not change by just bringing a new manager in. So we go back to what I said. This is why Amorim is saying this is the worst Man United side ever. And Bruno can come up and front up like he should do and say, we've got to do better. But the bottom line is, Bruno, you can't. You can't do better with that squad. I know it. You know it. Amorim knows it. Every bloody fan knows it. You can't do better. We need to face the truth. You know, there'll be people moaning, talking about relegation and it's not acceptable and this, that and the other. But the answer is staring you in the face. They ain't good enough. They're not going to be good enough and they ain't good enough and no coach is going to make them good enough and Bruno's not going to make them good enough and they're not going to make them good enough. It's a collective. It's not Rashford, it's not Bruno, it's not Casemiro, it's the squad. Kobe Mainoo got a lot of criticism today. Kobe Mainoo in a better squad will be a better player and he'll become a better player. And you could say that Bruno will be a better player in a better squad. Like De Ligt, Mazraoui will be better players in a better squad. We've got to stop individualising this and listen to what Amorim says. This is probably the worst Man United side in history. That doesn't mean Bruno's a shit captain. It doesn't mean Maguire's a terrible defender. We will have players in that squad that are good players, but the squad is a bad squad. Now, that's not because of Casemiro, and that's not because of Rasmus, and that's not because of Delo. It's because the squad is wrong. If you've got a jigsaw, you might have a really good collection of pieces from 4 or 5 jigsaws. You're never going to make a picture. Doesn't mean all the pieces are bad. It means you need to pick what pieces you're going to keep and bring pieces in that fit. And we make a massive mistake all the time because we go, it's Rashford's fault or it's Casemiro's fault. And that's what we do. And then we go, the whole squad's crap. Sell the whole squad because that's petulant behaviour as well. I've done it. But the truth is, within that squad, there are players that are good enough. But the squad is shit. And that's what Amorim's saying. That team is the worst team in Man United's history. But he won't want to sell them all. He just needs to build a correct squad by moving some out and moving some in. And then that goes back to the top again. So I get, Onana. I saw, some of the stuff that's been said about Onana. It's a waste of time. Onana's not the problem at Man United. Might not be good enough, but he's not the problem because that's not enough. That's not enough of a replacement in the squad as far as I'm concerned. Which is why it's so good what Amorim said. It needs to be said because I feel like the truth will set you free. And the answer is so simplistic. Remove some players, bring some better players in, and the only people who can do that are the Glazers and Ineos. So here we are again, looking at you, asking you to do something. And I don't think they have the appetite. Cal, welcome to the Members Club. Thank you very much. I'm sorry to say I'm no longer wasting... Oh, sorry, let me go through some of these chats. Are you watching the Rams game? I've got it on at the moment. Eagles are winning at the moment. Michael Neal says, back to basics, build a spine, goalkeeper, centre midfield, centre forward, then slowly build from there, says Michael Neal. For them, it's an achievement to be in United, and when they have it, they forget about the real cause, says Owen Smith about Ineos. Mark, there's some players that go to their national team solely because they play for United and our reputation, not skill. That will change soon, says Diego. I think it's time to drop Onana for Bienda, says Luke Birch, and let him get used to the Premier League, considering this season's a write-off. B. Gino says, do you feel after this defeat like the Glazers and Ineos have to actually do something this January? Almost that they're pressurised to do it now, says B. You know what? I mean, we're moving off a little bit here, but just a little bit of breaking news. This is coming from Sam, who works with the United Stand. Sam C reports, very, very good at getting news. He said this evening, Dortmund have strengthened their case for Rashford. The German club have requested information on Rashford and his behaviour in recent days. I mean, look, this is so interesting. We are the worst Man United side ever. We don't pick our two biggest earners, Casemiro and Rashford. And I don't think there's many Man United fans out there that think that's a mistake. What did Amorim say tonight about Marcus Rashford after the game? He basically said something along the lines of, I will pick players. I will not pick players that I don't think benefit the team, and I will keep doing that. And that, for me, is exactly the right attitude to have. He can't change his formation, and he can't go back to players that he doesn't think are good enough. So he is. This is the point, isn't it? He is trying to do things, but what I'm trying to say is he's already took the two biggest earners out of the team. He's already helping Ineos because Ineos want to save money. So he's already doing it, but they're not helping him do it. You know what I mean? Like, Rashford and Casemiro are not Man United players. They don't get picked, but they are Man United players. And this is, you know, everywhere I look with Amorim, he is honest. He is trying to do things. He is dropping players. He is trying to remove players. But then they're still here because the prats that run the club can't do it. We've got a manager who's not picking these players and basically saying get rid of them. And those players probably want to go. But Ineos and the Glazers won't get rid of them. So you ask me, are we going to do anything in January? Well, I don't know. I actually don't know whether we're going to do anything in January because we've not done anything so far. I personally think, answering B. Gino's question, I think they might do something reckless. Not ruthless. I think they might do something reckless and go, we need money. Garnacho represents pure profit. Let's get Garnacho out and try and get a couple of players in. And I don't agree with it. But you know what? Is it not a sign of what we've become? It's all right me moaning about we shouldn't do it and I don't want it to happen. But we are Everton. We're not far off a relegation battle. And if it means we're going to get a bloody left back and a midfielder, which is what we desperately need at the moment, then I don't want it to happen. I think it's a really sad thing that we become Everton and sell players to buy players. But I think that's probably what they will do. I think that's what they're trying to do. But I don't think it's a good thing. I think it's a desperate thing. I think it's a reflection on where we are as a football club, that we're having to sell young players to buy other players because that's what we've become, a sell to buy football club. That's, you know, terrifying for me, but I think that's what we will end up doing because we are in a very dangerous position. Matthew says, I was travelling today and missed everything. Can you sum up the game in a few words? One word, shit. It was, mate, it was terrible. There's no point watching Match of the Day. It was absolute shit. We had one shot on goal and it was a penalty. It was a waste of time. Do you think the 1 year buyback clause is keeping Ineos from really being the executive management, says Bashir? I don't know. How do these players take those comments, says Alex? What, being told they're the worst team ever? Well, it's the truth. It's the truth. But the problem is you'll get people like Bruno Fernandes and Harry Maguire and a few others that will take it personally and want to put it right, but they can't do it on their own. You're only as good as your weakest members. And this is what I mean about the squad is broken. That's what Amorim means about the worst team. Amorim won't think people like Bruno Fernandes and Harry Maguire are shit because he knows that they probably are players that he wants to have around. But the team is shit because there'll be other people in the team that are dragging it down. Will Amorim's statement turn the players on him, says Ollie? No, I don't think the players will turn on the manager. I don't think that will happen. But what needs to happen? I was going to say this, and I will say it. I think another reason Amorim has done this, when you think about it, because I think your point's good. Tonight, what would you do if your manager basically said you and your colleagues are crap? Which is what Amorim has basically said. What would you be doing tonight? Would you be messaging? Would you be happy with that? Would you be encouraged by that? Would you be defiant? Would you be demotivated? Would you be messaging other teammates going, who's this? You know, I think that Amorim is fully aware that some players might start to turn against him. And what he needs, therefore, is backing. He's just said this team ain't good enough. And that team might turn on him. Look at what happened with Ranić. Ranić said it, open heart surgery, and the team started performing even worse. What they need to do is bring some new players in that are his players and dance to his tune, and that will strengthen his position. But it's a gamble because if they don't bring anybody in, that's not going to happen. No player other than maybe the new signings can feel hard done by if sold. Even Mainu should be a young player being integrated into a solid midfield, says Michael. Dylan says, loving the content. It's like a never-ending nightmare. We're just so poor. Thank you, Dylan, for your super chat. Shame on Ineos. They made a deal with the devil and are acting shocked when it doesn't work. Ineos and the Glazers out now, says Ash. Look, fundamentally, the biggest problem we have at the moment is that we can create space to look. This is as simple as it gets. I saw somebody today saying if we sell Garnacho, it gives us a lot more manoeuvrability to buy players because Garnacho could be £50 million of pure profit. Pure profit on the books for Manchester United would mean you've got 50 million to spend, but you could buy 2 or 3 players where they're worth £50 million each, but you only pay £10 million in year one, which is covered by your 50 million. You've still got 20 left. That's great. You could do that. If I've got £50 million to spend this January, I could buy 3 players worth £50 million, £150 million altogether. And I'd only pay 30 million in year one. But next year, and for the next 5 years, I've got to find 30 million to play for those players. We are already doing this, by the way. There are players that we are already... People think it's really clever. They think it's a blank canvas. Get 50 million, buy 5 players worth £50 million each and just pay 10 million in the first year. And everyone thinks you've just paid 50 million, but you haven't. You're paying 50 million next year, the year after, and the year after that. You are still paying £250 million. You're just doing it over 5 years, costing you 50 million each year. So people think, let's sell Garnacho for £50 million and then we can buy 5 £50 million players and just pay £10 million a year. And they think they've come up with this idea. Problem is twofold. One, we are already doing this. We've probably done it with Anthony and we're only into year 3. We're probably still paying 10, 15 million pounds a year on Anthony for the next few years. We'll have done it with Rasmus. We might have done it with Casemiro. We might have done it with Mount. So we're already doing this. We're already paying 30, 40, 50 million pounds a year for players we've already bought. We're certainly doing it with Yoro and Xerxes. So that's 20 million pounds this summer we've got to pay for Yoro and Xerxes and next summer. So we're already doing this. Anana's probably another one. So these geniuses who come up with, let's get 50 million pound for Garnacho, pure profit, and then we can buy 5 players and pay, we're already doing that. So let's get 50 million pound for Garnacho might be 30 million of that's going to pay off for Yoro and everybody else. So we're already doing it. The second thing as well is that that's fine selling Garnacho and creating the space to go and buy these players. But that's manipulating FFP and PSR to make you be able to buy players. You've got to have the money to do it. Like Newcastle would love to do that. Newcastle would love to have Garnacho and sell him for 50 million quid and do exactly what I've just said, because it gives them manoeuvrability, and they're owned by Saudi, so they've got loads of money they can bring into the club. But we haven't got that. We haven't got owners that want to bring money into the football club. We haven't got Todd Bowley. We haven't got the Saudis. We haven't got Sheikh Mansour. We've got the Glazers and Ineos. So you can come up with ways for us to get money into the football club. The big problem is we haven't got billionaire owners that are desperate to get money into the club. Like maybe if Qatar had bought the club, they said they were going to clear the debt and pump money into the club. So they would have done it. Sheikh Mansour would do it with Man City. Newcastle, Saudis would do it. That Todd Bowley wants to do it at Chelsea. But we don't have that type of ownership. At no point in his pitch did Sir Jim Ratcliffe say, I want 100% and I want to pump all my wealth into Man United. He's never said that. All he's really said is, well, at the end of the day, we want to be the best team in the world, but it's got to be sustainable. It's got to be sustainable, and sustainable means profitable, a business. So, yeah, we're going to struggle to do that. Spending our way out of this, 100%, and you know what? It really pains me because I think if we'd, I don't think I know. We've spent well over £1 billion in the last decade. For what? For what? I think even one of the best things Richard Arnold ever said was, we've spent over £1 billion in the last 10 years. I go into Carrington and I sometimes think, on what? And that's the thing. We have had this opportunity to not be in the position we're in. We've spent ridiculous amounts of money badly, really badly. But that doesn't mean... Somebody said to me a few weeks ago, oh, you're always moaning about you need to spend money. And, and I went, hold on a minute. Did I spend that money? No. Well, I'm right then, aren't I? Well, you can't just, you've spent money before and it didn't work. And I said, exactly, because we spent it badly. If I've got £1 billion and I burn it, I'm not a billionaire. But if I've got £1 billion and I invest it, I've still got £1 billion. And I'm probably richer. What Man United did over the last 10 years is they took £1 billion and they burnt it. They didn't use it properly. So I need another billion because I need to spend it properly. And we haven't done that. Ash, well, thanks for being a member for 28 months. The manager is, Linda says the manager's crap. Okay, been at every home game this season so far, but I'm struggling now, says Scott. Can't keep putting a lot of effort and pounds into this when I have always leave deflated, says Scott. Mate, I think it's a harsh thing to say, but I think a lot of United fans, if they could press the button and empty Old Trafford, would do it. It won't happen because we have an amazing fan base, season ticket holders, people who want to go, and that won't happen. But I think if we could all just press a button and empty Old Trafford for the next 10 home games, we'd do it. Because you're right, it's a fucking show. It's a shit show at the moment. And you want to send that message to the owners who would be terrified. Look, I still say this, and it's not controversial. I would love breaking news. The Glazers have left Man United. That to me is still the solution. We missed that opportunity 12 months ago, but I still stand by what I've said for years and years and years and years, that this club with the Glazers in it ain't never going to be successful, and I would love them to go. For me, that's the solution. But the thing is, you get ridiculed and mocked for it. Here they go again, green and gold scarves, Glazers out. Well, it's not here we go again, is it? It's just a constant message. It's like when I go round my mother-in-law's and she puts mango on my pudding and I go, what's that? And don't worry, it sounds really rude, but it's been going on for years. And she'll go, what? And I'll say, every time you put mango on my pudding, I don't like mango. Oh, I thought you might try it again. No, I'm not 8. I don't like mango. I don't like the texture. I don't like the taste of it. I don't like it even in a drink. Stop putting it on my plate, please. So, Glazers out. Oh, you're still moaning on about that? You're still getting your green gold? No, I'm very consistent. I've been Glazers out for years. Out. Glazers out. Like, This is the thing that will solve Man United's future. And look, I would put Sir Jim Ratcliffe in charge solely because I don't like, that would be better than the Glazers, because I don't actually like this scenario that we have at the moment of who's responsible for this, that and the other. Amorim is Ralph Rangnick in the media at least, says Umzil. He's talking like Ralph. Look what happened to him, says Chris. Yep. Are you watching the Rams game? I have it on yet, Ian. The fact in his PC he got asked about Rashford again is embarrassing. Scary thing is the manager is the guy, yet Ineos may just get rid in the Glazer fashion. I think this is Josh. You just read my mind. I actually think that what Amorim has said about this being the worst Man United side is shots fired up and down. It's at the players, it's at the owners, and it's basically, I'm not having this. I'm not taking the blame for this, and it's going to come on me. The media at some point are coming for me. Even some of the fans are going to come for me, and I'm not having it. I'm not taking this. You know, these players are shit, and the owners aren't doing anything to help. You know what? What's the worst that can happen? You can sack me, check my contract. That'll be 10, 15 million. Thank you very much. What's he got to lose? He's not disrespecting Man United. He's not disrespecting you. He's telling the truth. If I was in charge of Man United in his situation, and considering Ruben Amorim's not even a Man United fan, as a Man United fan, if I was in charge, I would not be smiling it out going, we're going to get better. We're going to get better. We're going to have, you know, it's going to be fine. It's going to be fine. He doesn't have to, but I think he's done the right thing by fronting up honestly and going, hey, they're not good enough and they're not helping out. That's why it's going wrong. I've got to be responsible as the manager because, look, it's 2 wins in 10. But they're not good enough, and they're not good enough, and that's the problem. What's going to happen? What's the worst that can happen to Amorim? They sack him. Can you imagine? Well, I don't know that anything would happen, actually. They'd probably bring Gareth Southgate in, and everyone would go, Southgate's at the wheel. But the point is, Amorim's got nothing to lose. The worst thing he could do, at least it shows he cares, he could go, hey, I've got a 2.5-year contract. I'm being paid good money. If they sack me, I'm going to get loads more money. You know, I'll just keep my head down and do my job. Don't want to upset anybody. But he hasn't. He's gone, you're to blame, you're to blame. What are you going to do about it? And it's a game of call your bluff. And at the end of the day, Rangnick did this and they got rid of him because they had an ego. And that was the Glazers and Murta. But are Ineos going to go, you know what? I like this guy. I think this is the sort of personality that we need. Let's back him. Because I look at it and I go, as much as the Glazers are terrible and Ineos haven't done themselves any favours, unless it's purposely sabotage, what part of you is going to go, well, we're not giving him any money. We're not giving him any money. Like, do you want to get relegated? Do you want to bankrupt Manchester United? Like, they have to find a way to do something. I don't blame Amorim. He sees it, but Ineos don't. If they don't want to make a change, then let's rebuild the club and get rid of the dead weight in the team, says Denners. You can't bring top execs to a broken building and expect them to perform. Just as 10 Messis won't perform in a leaking stadium, it starts with morale, says Parker. Imagine Amorim walks and Deitch comes in, says Red. Glazers are worth 10 billion. They are mugging us, says Daniel Winstanley. And how about we loan some young players to prove themselves instead of doing it in the squad to the detriment of the team? Buy ready players, says Mr. Darkside. Was Sir Jim Ratcliffe even at the game today to pay respects to Mr. Law and family, says Garfield? I don't know, mate. We need loans for now. Big contracts must end first, says Keel. Hi, Mark. I don't think Ineos will back Ruben in January. These players know the state of the club. It's evident in their slow play and lack of urgency, says Slippy. And Amorim out isn't even ever going to be the question. It's more likely Amorim will be Man United out. Without backing, how can they expect him to stay, says Matthew. And the club is only appealing to managers as they're all getting a good payout when they get sacked. Hope you're well, Mark, and settling in the new gaff. Thank you, Luke. Thank you very much, mate. Hope you're doing well. Certainly, it's cheaper to terminate contracts and use the players' wages saved to make smart transfers rather than selling our most valuable assets, right? Says who to blame. New stadium, underperforming players, constantly rotating manager, PSR issues, fans calling for relegation. The reality is, this really is 2022 Everton, says Denton. Look, I said it. We are Everton. People think I'm taking the piss. We are Everton. Like, I don't know why people think this is a joke. This is not a joke. We are Everton. Why are people not acknowledging it? We've got crap owners. We're trying to build a new stadium when we can't afford it. We've got players that aren't good enough that nobody else wants, and we've got no money to spend. And can I just remind you, Everton are only 6 points behind us, and they've got a game in hand. So we are basically Everton. We're a selling club as well. That's what the Glazers and Ineos have done to Man United. They've turned us into Everton. Like, we are a selling club. We have to sell to buy. We're in big shit. And it makes me laugh about the new stadium as well, because this stuff came out about the new stadium on Friday. How are we paying for this stadium? We haven't got the money. We're either going to get investment from people or borrow it. And if we borrow it, we've got to pay it back. And Arsenal did this under Wenger for 10 years, where basically they didn't spend hardly any money on transfers and they relied on him getting top 4 each year, but they couldn't win the league. So this new stadium is probably going to lead to us not being able to spend money in the transfer window even more. And they've got a ready-made excuse. Please keep coming to the ground and paying ridiculous ticket prices like the mugs we take you for. We can't afford players because of FFP, PSR and payments on the stadium. But in 50 years, when we've paid the stadium off and we're making all the profit from you lot, and we're making profit and dividends, we'll be able to buy players again. So people need to realise, maybe if it goes the Arsenal way, the stadium could be another 5 to 10 years of not being able to be active in the market while we pay something off. I mean, we genuinely could be broken as a football club for another decade quite easily. Easily broken. Because that stadium's going to take that time to build and repay. So, yeah. I often wonder if Ashford didn't agree with Ineos' way of running. I mean, the problem with the Dan Ashworth thing is we won't know the bloody truth because they all sign NDAs, and that's the problem. Yeah, that's the real problem. Have you seen this from Prathurst? This week and this season is a consequence of the brainless decision to keep Ten Hag in May. Journalists were pillared and called wankers by some fans for questioning his future at the FA Cup final post-match press conference. United got it wrong and now they're worse. Oh, here we go. This guy, you are a wanker, mate. I don't think people were calling you a wanker because of the Ten Hag stuff. It's because you constantly talk shit. What are we talking about Ten Hag not getting sacked in May for? Like, it's gone. It's gone. We need to talk about what the problem is now. The problem is now. You know, I can't stand these people. I used to have a girlfriend like this. You have an argument with them and they don't shut up about it for weeks and sometimes years. Like, move on. In hindsight, we're all bloody geniuses. I said Newcastle would beat Bournemouth. Right? Before the game, I said Newcastle will beat Bournemouth. If you'd asked me on Saturday night, I'd have said Bournemouth would have beaten Newcastle. Guess what? Because I know the past. I can't be doing with people who, genius in hindsight. Oh, we should have done this. Now I know the outcome. Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, absolutely brilliant. We should have put Binder in goal against Brighton because Onana made mistakes. Yeah, look, of course we should have bloody sacked Ten Hag in January, saying it in January. But at the time, he just won the FA Cup with a bunch of shit players that have already lost 10 games this season and have lost 8 out of 10 with a new manager. So I would say, Samuel, that the problem wasn't not sacking Ten Hag. The problem is the squad of players not being good enough. And that if we'd sacked Ten Hag in the summer and brought Amorim in the summer and not sold Rashford, Casemiro, Eriksen, Lindelof, Mount, Shaw, we'd still be in the same position now because you'd still have all those players that need to be sold. And what players would Amorim have brought in? And also, if we got rid of Ten Hag in the summer, would we have still bought Agate, De Ligt, Mazraoui, Yoro, Xerxes, who actually I think are all good signings? So it doesn't do anything to say the biggest problem was not sacking Ten Hag in May. There's too many multiples there. Like, we probably wouldn't have signed De Ligt and Mazraoui, which I think have been good signings. We might have bought 2 other people who failed. Amorim might not have took the job in the summer. Amorim might have took the job in the summer and decided to give Rashford and Casemiro a go and still not got rid of them until January. So, I don't... And also, as I said in my match reaction, the biggest issue is not sacking Ten Hag in May. No. Stop going down an alleyway and stay on the highway. The biggest issue is the Glazers didn't sell to Qatar. The biggest issue is the Glazers are still here. The biggest issue is the debt's still here. And the biggest issue is that Ineos are facilitating the Glazers. That's the biggest issue. Because, you know what? If you screwed your head on, what you're talking about was down to Ineos and the Glazers. So, going back to not sacking Ten Hag in May, hello, the people who made that choice are still here now making bad choices. So we shouldn't be going, Rashford's the biggest issue. Not sacking Ten Hag's the biggest issue. Harry Maguire's the big... the biggest issue is the people that are still here running the football club. Clear as day. Absolutely clear as day. Can I just actually, just for a laugh actually, I wasn't going to do this, but it's just reminded me from something. This journalist who thinks he knows everything, who has caused loads of problems at Man United over the last 12 months. Do you want to laugh? Do you want to listen to his player ratings? Okay. Anana, 2 out of 10. Okay. De Ligt, 4 out of 10, but Yoro and Maguire, 5 out of 10. So De Ligt was worse than Maguire and Yoro, according to this journalist, okay? Mazraoui, 3 out of 10. Mazraoui was worse than Yoro and Maguire as well. And Delo was better than De Ligt with a 5. Okay. So do you detect he might not like De Ligt? Giving De Ligt a 4, but giving Maguire, Yoro and De Ligt a 5. Now, De Ligt was my man of the match with a 6. It was him or Ahmad. And De Ligt, Ahmad was your man of the match, but De Ligt was just behind him with 21%. So very weird that De Ligt's getting 4 below Maguire, Yoro and Delo. But it gets even better. Agate, 5. That's absolutely fine. Bruno, 5. Absolutely fine. Mainu, 6. Mainu gets a 6 ahead of Agate and Bruno. Ahmad, 6. Fine with that. Xerxes, 6. Fine with that. But yeah, very, very strange how he gives Mainu a 6 higher than Agate and Bruno, and then gives De Ligt a 4 lower than Delo, Maguire and Yoro. Yeah. Look, I thought they were all crap today. Hey, bloody hell, is that being played now? How much snow is there going on here? Is that an old game or what? I'll tell you what, I've got this NFL game on Sky. And LA Rams against Philadelphia Eagles. It was grass a minute ago, and now it's about that deep snow. Yeah, anyway, halftime mass walkouts need to happen, says Lloyd. Silverbridge says, if Ineos was any different, the Glazers wouldn't have sold part of the club to them. They had the chance to cash in, but still wanted to milk us and got Ineos in to help them do it. They're no different, says Silverbridge. In fairness, just going back to that journalist, by the way, I've asked multiple times for him to come on the show or for me to go on his podcast. He daren't do it like every other journalist. This has been afforded to Telegraph, Athletic, everyone. So, you know, for journalists, they're very good at hiding behind their pen. So, look, absolutely happy to have those conversations if they disagree, but they won't do it. Other than getting new owners who pay off the debt, what is the best approach to get rid of it? Invest and qualify for the Champions League? Killen, yeah. I mean, very good point. You know, we can talk about the mess, and I believe. Did you know that this is a good point as well? Last season we lost 14 Premier League games. We lost 14 Premier League games last season, and 8 of them were and we finished 8th, and we got 60 points. And quite rightly, a lot of people were saying Ten Hag needs to get sacked, despite the injury crisis and winning the FA Cup. We lost 14 games and we finished 8th. We've lost 10 games already. We are going to break that. We are going to break that. We are not going to lose only 4 more games out of the next, what? How many games have we got left? 16? We are going to be touching incredibly between 15 and 20 losses this season. Amorim is right. This is the worst Man United side in history. He's predicting it and he's stating it. Last season was horrible. 14 losses is unforgivable. But we did have an injury crisis. We did. And that was problematic. We haven't had an injury crisis this year. We sacked Ten Hag in November. So how many of these losses are Ten Hag's? Maybe 5 or 6, maybe less. I don't know. I can't remember. But we're going to lose between 15 and 20 games. And we lost 14 last year. So it's going to be worse. It's going to be worse. And how do you get out of this was the question. You got to start playing better. You got to start playing better. And we've got to win the Europa League. It's as simple as that. We have to win the Europa League. All your eggs are in that basket. You got to win the Europa League or the FA Cup. The FA Cup gets you back in the Europa League. The Europa League gets you in the Champions League. But you've got to be in Europe. You've got to be in Europe. Absolutely got to be in Europe. Because it's somebody was saying to me, the Champions League to Villa is like 80 million just to get to the knockout stage. 80 million. So, and that's pure profit. You know, you can sell Mainu and you can sell Garnacho, but 80 million from the UEFA for the Champions League, that's pure profit. That's not a transfer. So we've got to win the Europa League. Now, we're not good enough to win the Europa League at the moment. We couldn't win the bloody local power league. But we have to win the Europa League. So instead of people saying we can't, somebody just said, how do we get out of this mess? I've got to get money into the club. We won't be in the Europa League next year. The scary thing is, and I was thinking about this earlier, next season, we won't be in Europe. Next season, the only pathway into Europe will be to finish in the top 5 or to win the FA Cup. Because the Carabao Cup, I think it puts you in the Conference League. So next season will be fucking impossible to get in the top 5 with this setup, even if we buy some players. This is why, for me, being active in January was so important. And this is why I used the Chelsea model. Why did Todd Boehly go mad and spend 2 billion in such a period of time? Because he knew there was a window where they had to move quick. You can't do it slowly. You've got to go now, and you've got to take a risk. Now is the time. Because if we don't do something now, we won't have the opportunity to do it next year. Because we won't be in the Europa League. The Europa League is the easiest pathway into the Champions League. For us, finishing the top 5 in the Premier League is going to get harder and harder. Winning the FA Cup only gets you in the Europa League. So this is a massive opportunity to get out of jail, to get yourself out of jail. Get yourself in the Champions League, get more money into the club, more revenue, which you can then spend on players legit. And what are we doing about it? We're getting worse. We've got the worst Man United side in history. We can't win the Europa League based on how we're playing at the moment, but we could win the Europa League if we even just bring in a left back in. Having somebody that can play left back would be really, really, really hard, really, really helpful. But I think they're doing the same thing that we've been doing for 18 months, thinking Luke Shaw's going to come back and stay fit. We'll be playing City in the Championship at this rate, says Play. Have we ever had a goalkeeper as bad as Anana, says La Familia? I think he thinks being a goalkeeper is posing for a picture of goals going in. My dead grandma has better reflexes. Mark, women's team beat City. Today's only positive, says Andy Cheatham. Well done to them. Could we get relegated, says A to Z? Honest question. 10 points off Ipswich. How many points? Oh God, I can't believe I'm actually thinking this through. We've got 26 points. We need 10 points from the last 18 games. No, I don't think we can get relegated. 36 points is what we need. Ipswich, Leicester won't get 36 points. They won't do it. So we need 10 points. No, we won't get relegated. We won't. We're not good enough. We're not even good enough to get relegated, actually. We won't get relegated, no. It might end up being close, but we won't get relegated because I think we'll get another 10 points. Look, one thing I will say is a week ago we played well against Arsenal. 2 weeks ago, we played well against Liverpool. We are capable of 3 or 4 times this season playing well. But we're going to lose a lot more games. Can we appoint Ten Hag so we can sack him again for signing Anthony and Onana? Says Say. Something has gone horribly wrong. Man United, like many great teams before them, have experienced their downfall. How much worse will it get, though? Says Shotgun Justice. Mate, I think, people say how much worse can it get? Did you ever think we would be into the back end of January 13th in the league? Miles off the top half. I mean, that's pretty bad. I mean, and also, did you ever think we'd have an honest 2 minutes figuring out whether we'd get relegated? I don't know whether it can get any worse than that. I've always said I can't imagine a top 6 side ever getting relegated anymore. There's too much money in the Premier League. I don't think it can happen. But is that not another reason to buy a left back? I mean, on a level, the fact that we're talking about relegation and I'm saying it won't happen, but the fact that we're actually talking about it, I mean, I'm saying spend some money to get us in the Europa League final and win to get in the Champions League to bring more money in. But I remember West Ham years ago were in danger of going down, getting relegated, and they went and spent what was quite a lot of money at the time on Paul Kitson and John Hartson, and they started scoring goals and kept them up, and they bought them to keep West Ham in the league. We're talking about spending money so that Amorim can start building something, or that we have a chance of doing well in the Europa League. How's about we go and spend some money to stay in the fucking league? I mean, wherever you look, not doing anything in the January transfer window is bloody suicide in a footballing sense. What if we are in a relegation battle in April and we didn't buy a left back in January? Like, everywhere you look, there is no justification for not bringing players in. New manager needs new signings. Could help us win the Europa League, get us in the Champions League, 80 million profit straight away. Also, could keep us in the bloody league if worst thing happens. And what are Ineos and Glazers doing? Nah, not spending anything till the summer. What? When we're in the bloody Championship? Come on. Spend some bloody money. It's obvious. If Ineos were any different, the Glazers wouldn't have sold part of the club to them. They had the chance to cash in, but still wanted to milk us and got Ineos in to help them do it. They're no different to Silverbridge. Well, I think there is a naivety there, to be honest. There is a very good point there. There is a naivety there from us because there was a lot of people saying Ineos won't take any shit from the Glazers. They've got the best interests at the club. They're fans at heart. They are Manchester through and through. But when you think about it, they're not going round for they're not going round for a meal. They're putting £1 billion of their own money into a business where they won't even own half of it. This is a partnership. A partnership, there has to be an element of trust. You have to get on. So all these prats who go, oh, Ineos won't take any shit from the Glazers. They'll flex their muscles. What? The Glazers own half the club. Ineos own 28%. They have to get on. They're in a partnership. They have to trust each other. They have to get on. They have to be friends. So why did we ever think that wasn't going to be the case? That the Glazers and Ineos were going to be at war? Of course they're going to be in it together. What comes next? Great question. Great question. My prediction is that they will do something outrageous like, sell Garnacho to try and get some money into the club. What comes next is we need... Look, as I said, every road leads back to bringing some players in. Stave off relegation. Give Amorim a good start. Give yourself a chance at the Europa League. PR. Like, this club right now needs some positivity. If you bring a couple of players in, it just gives everything a kickstart. That dressing room needs a kickstart. The fans need a kickstart. Ineos need a bit of positivity. Everywhere I look, we've got to bring somebody in. But everywhere I look, there isn't a hint of us bringing somebody in. So I think that, what have we got? Transfer window closes 2 weeks tomorrow. I think 2 weeks tomorrow or 2 weeks today. Yeah. Let's see what happens. But what worries me is that we're so slow because they've implemented this Glazer-nomic thing of we don't do anything until we've sold somebody. So until Rashford goes or Casemiro goes or they sell Garnacho, they're not going to do any incomings. So time is sort of running out. Mark, if we could, would you like to see us spend big in the summer overhauling the whole team, taking a hit on FFP and missing the next 2 transfer windows or something like that, says Nick B. I'm trying to think that through. What, spend loads of money in the summer? If I was, I'd do it now. I'd spend the money now. I'd do what Chelsea did. I'd spend the money now because in the summer it'll be too late. We won't be in Europe next year. So if I was in charge and I was going to risk spending money, I'd do it now. I'd do it now because there's something to rescue. That Europa League will not be there next year, and that is the easiest route into the Champions League. We might look back on this in 2 years' time and go, remember when we were in the Europa League and we had a chance to win it and go into the Champions League? It's the easiest way into the Champions League. We should be doing everything we can now to win it. And part of that is improving the squad. Amorim Martinoni wasn't getting anything in January, had to deal with his squad, but got a bigger budget for January, had the backing from the boards. Is crazy. JM says, nothing to say about Brighton then, beating you at Old Trafford. Yeah, mate, we did a watch-along, a match reaction, a fan forum, all to do with the Brighton game. So, yeah, we did have something to say about it. Anyway, look, I'm going to go. It was meant to be an impromptu show. It has been helpful to a certain extent, but to be a fly on the wall in the Man United boardroom, what are you doing? But I've got to say, I don't feel very positive. I don't feel very happy. But Amorim doing what he's done encourages me to say that this is the worst Man United side in history. Does 2 things. 1, says to the players you're not good enough. And 2, says to the owners you're not good enough. So the reaction to that is going to be very, very interesting. Take care, everyone. Thanks, everyone, for watching. Over 20,000 watching tonight as well. You are absolute superstars. We're back tomorrow at 10 o'clock with the show, of course. We've got Rangers on Thursday. I'm looking forward to that Rangers game. I've been looking forward to it ever since the draw. The novelty of it. The reality is we might lose. I never thought we would lose to Rangers. I thought it might be close, but that game, actually, we might lose. Take care, everyone. Stay safe. Look after yourself. We've got the community. It's a difficult time. Things could get worse, but, you know, at least we've got each other and we've got the truth and we've got a manager that speaks the truth. Take care. Stay safe. I'll speak to you on the next one.